Okay, welcome everybody. Today we are going to talk about logical fallacy. This is part 2 of the lecture. We've already discussed many logical fallacies, but there are more. So we are going to discuss them one by one today. So let's start with that. Firstly, just in case you were not there before, I'm going to record this video as well as the video before that. I've already uploaded it. What I'll do is that I'll put a link here so that you can view that lecture from last time here, and then you can make up for it. So watch that video first, and then we watch this video. Okay. So let's start with this revising what we did last time. We're just going to revise what logical fallacy means. A logical fallacy is a type of, you can say, a desperate measure to when somebody does not have a strong argument or a cogent argument, then what they do is that they go for a fallacy. They try to mislead the other person into believing that their argument is strong, and how they do that can take many forms and shapes. So we should be able to identify, firstly, we should identify if there are any fallacies in our argument, and make sure there are none, because any fallacy that on the surface it may seem that it's going to make our argument stronger, but actually it will give a big loophole to the other person that if they uncover the logical fallacy, then our whole argument, even if it is true, even if it is important, it will go down. So we have to be very careful that we do not have any logical fallacies in our argument, and then we have to be well educated about the logical fallacies, so that if anybody else is trying to make these fallacies in their argument, then we should be able to identify them and then counter them by exposing the fallacy and saying that this is a misleading statement. So I'm going to shift my screen to the logical fallacies that we discussed, and we'll move on from there. So these are the fallacies, the whole ones, and we discussed strawman fallacy, false cause, slippery slope, ad hominem, special pleading, loaded question, scandalous fallacy, bandwagon, black or white, begging to question, appeal to authority, and appeal to nature. So we've discussed these, and now we are moving ahead with the rest, and let's start that. So I'm going to put this here, and let's zoom in for our first logical fallacy of the day, which is composition or division. Now this composition and division is also a kind of a bias that we usually refer to as the halo and horn effect. Now the halo and horn effect, or the composition division fallacy, is more or less the same thing. What it means is that whenever we know about a positive thing about anything or anyone, then we automatically assume that the other things are also positive. For example, it's a very common halo effect when teachers see an exam paper in which the handwriting of a student is very good. It is clear, it is good, it looks good. Then the teacher has a halo effect or a composition fallacy that the content of the whatever that student has written must also be good. So however, it might not be so. So this is a halo effect. When we assume that since one thing is good, the other thing must also be good. This must be a good student because this student has a good handwriting, and therefore whatever he or she has written must also be good. In the same way, the horn effect applies. We can apply it in the same example as well. That if a student has a very bad handwriting, then the teacher assumes that the content must also not be good. Now we can have another example for horn effect. For example, an employee comes late to the office. So even though that employee might be very efficient and might be working more than others who actually arrive on time and then they waste most of their time, that employee who comes late might be more efficient and works more for the company in less time, is more productive. But because that person is seen to be late in the beginning of the day, the boss will assume that since this person is late and this person is not responsible enough to come on time, this person must also be irresponsible in his other tasks as well. So this is called the horn and halo and horn effect. Why the halo and horn? Because the halo this is the halo that you see on whenever you see a picture of an angel. You see a halo on the head, so which means that an angel. So all the things with the angel are good, and the horn is the horn of the devil. So if that is bad, then in the devil, because if one person is bad, he is the devil, and then everything of that person is also bad. So this is how it okay. So then we have basically let's talk about particularly this fallacy in an argument. Whenever we are doing that, what we do is that we take something positive or negative that is known and accepted about a person or a thing, and then we apply these things to other things. For example, if we say that there is a particular person who should be named the best student of the year, and the best student is because this student has the best CGPA, and that can be proven. Everybody will agree that this person has the best CGPA. Therefore, this student must be good in other things because this person is good in education, in learning, and therefore this person should be awarded the best student of the year. However, this is a composition fallacy. We can say being good in grade doesn't mean that this student is good enough in all of the things. Maybe more things that matter more than those things that student is not that good. So this kind of fallacy is used in composition, when we are using it as we say that since this is positive, therefore the other things are positive as well. Or we can also have a negative example as well. For example, we say that we can say that one one person or one thing. Let's take up anything. Let's say that I went to um, a classroom in Mohammed Ali University, and the multimedia was not working at that time. So because the multimedia was not working well at that time and the screen was a bit dull, it means that the university is not a good university. And we assume that. Now that's a fallacy. Even if something is not working, it doesn't mean it has all the other things are also negative. So that's a fallacy. That's a misconception. We make these kinds of statements without thinking, but this is a kind of a fallacy. So to get it sorted, then we can move to the next, which is anecdotal. Anecdotal is it has another name in biases, I think. Opinion bias, I think, something like that. Basically, the anecdotal. What's an anecdote? Anecdote means a story. Not really a story. You can say a reference, a narration of something that happened. That's called an anecdote. So anecdotal means when somebody presents his own experience as a premise to some argument. For example, I say that I went out today and I saw that I met three people and all three of them were not wearing masks. Therefore, everybody else was not wearing masks. I assume that nobody is wearing masks because I met three people and they were like this. So using my experience as a premise to something is not true. If I say I didn't like that movie, hence it is a bad movie. So that doesn't make sense because it's only my opinion and my experience, and that can be different from others' experiences. So this experience is usually used as a shield or a diversion when somebody is making an argument on the basis of some statistics or some facts, and we say that no, this is not my experience. I have seen it this way, and and when somebody says that, actually what you should do is that you should immediately say that this is an anecdotal fallacy and your reference to your experience is the proof that you do not have facts behind your argument. You only need your experience. You only have your experience to talk about it. So this is a good way to handle this kind of fallacy. Let's move on to the next one, which is appeal to emotion. Appeal to emotion means that manipulating an emotional response in place of a valid or compelling argument. Um, now the first thing that we discussed when we were uh, uh, talking about this logic and how it works was that whenever we are succumbing to emotions, then uh, it is less likely that we are making a rational argument. So we should, or a strong argument. So we should try to remove the emotion. It doesn't mean that the emotion, there should be no emotion in the language. There can be emotive language, but it should be rational in context, in content. However, the way that we express it can be emotional. We can be very assertive in saying something, or we can be very hesitant in saying something. Both the text can be the same, but the emotion will change the outcome. So we can use the emotion when we are trying to say something, but not inside the content. Now, how do people manipulate the emotional response in place of a valid argument? So let's take an example. Uh, So, for example, we say that, yeah, this is a good example, a current example of the lockdown. If somebody says that we should have a lockdown, and instead of actually come up with an argument against the lockdown, we say that don't you feel for the people who are going to starve and die because of hunger, because they are so poor that they only live on daily wages, they have nothing saved, and this is going to kill them, and their blood will be on your hands. It's a very emotional response to a simple statement that we should have a lockdown. The same kind of argument can be made in such a way that we can say the lockdown is going to affect the daily wages earners, and it's going to have a bad impact on them because they will not be able to go out and earn their living. So it's not a good idea. Instead of that, we make it very emotional. And when we make it emotional, then people are likely to fall for that. But the thing is that we whenever we are emotional, we are not thinking logically, rationally, and that is going to harm the strength of the argument. So we should not appeal to emotion, neither should we fall down on when anybody else makes an emotional argument. And then we have this epoch. Epoch means any avoiding having to engage with criticism by turning it back on the accuser as answering criticism with criticism, which means uh, so what happens when we do that, when we are using criticism against criticism? For example, we say that yeah, this is a good example, a joke that you might have heard of. Um, a father was talking to his son, and the son was around 13, 14 years, and he said to his son, an American father said to his son, that do you know what you are doing with your life? You are doing nothing. When Abraham Lincoln was 14 years old, he used to sell newspapers, he used to do all this hard work, and then go to school and learn and do all of this. You are doing nothing. So instead of actually saying if that is true or not, if that is comparable or not, the child uses a criticism against the critic. And how does he do that? He says, when Abraham Lincoln was your age, he was the president of America. So what are you doing? Now that's an argument that might be very true, but it doesn't apply to the original argument. It doesn't refute the original argument. So the argument was about the child, not about the father. So this is how a criticism against a criticism is. What have you done for the country? What have you done in your life? Rather than trying to explain why you have done something or why you have not done something. So that's called epoch, which means criticism against criticism. Then we have the burden of proof. This is a very interesting one and quite baffling for some people who are trying to make a logical argument. It takes them aback. It happens sometime in courtrooms as well. So this is weird. It's a weird way to say it, and I think this is fairly easy to identify and refute. So the burden of proof means if I am saying something, if I am making a claim, I should also have some proof against that claim. For example, if I say that a student is sitting in the classroom while in the exam, then what proof do I have? If I have seen that student talking to anybody else, if I have if I find some kind of material with that person, then I can have the proof. Otherwise, I cannot make that claim. So, but instead of that, if I say that this student was cheating, and the other student says that no, I was not, and I say that okay, if you think that you were not cheating, then prove it that you were not cheating. Now, the claim was mine, so the proof should be mine, but I shifted the burden of proof to the student, which is not a good idea because it's a fallacy. The student can easily say that the burden of proof goes with the person who is making the claim, not the person who is defending. So, when we are shifting the burden of proof to the defendant, this is a fallacy, not acceptable in any argument, especially in the court case. Then we have no true Scotsman. A very interesting kind of thing. It is a bit like the one that we have studied before. It was called special pleading. It's close to special pleading, not exactly the same, but still. So what it means is that when we are saying something, like for example, I say chocolate is bitter. Chocolate is bitter. Now, if I say this, most people will say, no, chocolate is not bitter, chocolate is sweet. That's why children love it. It's not bitter, it's sweet. And I say, no, actually, the pure chocolate is bitter. So I change my claim, or I change my whatever I'm claiming the premise, and I change and I add an element of purity to it, that the true chocolate or the pure chocolate is actually the one that I'm talking about. Just like that, we make these decisions about people as well. For example, we say that Muslims offer all Muslims offer prayers 5 times a day, and somebody says that no, that's not true. In fact, most Muslims probably do not pray 5 times a day. So, and then I said, oh, no, but the true Muslims, all true Muslims pray 5 times a day. Now, that's a very weird thing to say because it's not provable. It's not possible to prove who is true and who is not. But it actually makes it the argument even more ambiguous. So, okay. So, that's called the no true Scotsman. And then we have the Texas Sharpshooter. The Sharpshooter. The Sharpshooter is who is a sharpshooter? The person who has a sniper or a gun that is targeted towards a very specific person or a thing. That's a sharpshooter, because the shoot is very sharp on that thing. You've seen it probably in movies. So the sharpshooter is a kind of an argument that only takes the arguments that are going to support the only takes those premises, those kinds of information or data that are supporting the argument and leaves the others. For example, if I say that the students at Muhammad Ali Jinnah University have a GPA of more than 3.2, and when somebody says that no, actually that's not true. Most of the students do not have a GPA more than 3.2. And then I say, okay, let's have a sample. And I deliberately choose 50 students in which 46 of them have a GPA more than 3.2. And I say, see, these are all students from Margo and they have a GPA of 3.2. So this means my claim was right. And that's not going to be a good argument, because that argument is actually based on information in which the sample taken is biased. It's suited to prove something. I can also do the opposite as well. If I'm trying to disprove it, then I just pick those students who have a GPA of less than 3, and I deliberately pick only those students to prove that this is not so. So in both cases this is possible, and that's called a sharpshooter. So whenever you are faced with an example in which there is a data that is very specific, that the sample size is biased, the sample is biased, then you should identify that fallacy. Probably we should go from here. This is the middle ground fallacy. The middle ground fallacy. The middle ground fallacy is a very weird kind of fallacy, because what happens in this is that often human beings are tempted, are actually, they are, because they are risk averse, people tend to choose things that are in the midway, the middle. What they do is that they just choose the middle part, the one that is in between. How do we do that? For example, you go to a fruit seller and you ask about apples. How good are these apples? So when you ask the seller, he says that I have three qualities of apple. One is for 80 rupees, one is for 120 rupees, and one is for 200 rupees. So you are very likely to choose the 120 rupees apple, because you would say that the 80 rupees must be really bad and the 200 is too expensive. So I'll go for the midway and buy the 120 rupees. This is how we choose the middle path. But this middle path actually is it can be misleading, can be something that's not true. Now how is that true? For example, if I am trying to make a fallacy deliberately. Yes, Hatim, are you saying anything? If not, please turn off your mic. So deliberately trying to make a fallacy like the middle ground fallacy. For example, if I say that There should be, for example, I'm uh, um, trying to tell the student that they should, uh, yeah, that's a good example. I remember. Whenever I give a kind of a group assignment, what happens is that the permissible number of students in the group has to be decided, how many there should be. So usually the students they would like to have like uh, 7 students or 8 students in a group because that would share all the burden and probably many of them would not be even required to work. So, but the teacher's aim is to divide the task equally so that everybody gets to learn and do things. So, how do I tackle this? So, in my mind, I believe that 3 students, if I think that 3 students should be enough, there should not be more than 3 students in a group. So, I start with this. Then, how many students should there be? And then I say 2. And the student say, no, 4. And I say, no, 2. And then they say, okay, let's go for the third. Let's have 3. So if I had said 3 in the first place, the students would say 5 and then we would settle for 4. But I said 2 deliberately so that when you are bargaining, you choose the middle ground and you choose what I really wanted in the first place. So that's called the middle ground fallacy. And the middle ground fallacy could be done on giving you this power to challenge me next time we have a group assignment whenever you study for me. So you can say that this is a middle ground fallacy, and the option to have 2 in the group is actually not logical because more than one is just 2 people in a group doesn't make sense. It has to be at least 3. So that you can challenge that on the middle ground basis. Anyway, genetic knowledge. Yeah. The genetic fallacy, judging something good or bad on the basis of where it comes from or from whom it comes. Genetic, or basically you can say origin fallacy, is a very typical fallacy that we are also committing with our own selves. When we are actually trying to convince our own selves or having an argument with our own selves about something or somebody, then we make this fallacy a lot. And what does this mean? This means this person belongs to this religion. Therefore, this person must be like that. This person belongs to that city. This person belongs to, this person has come from Islamabad. He must be really dull. He must be asleep by 8 o'clock in the night. This person is from Lahore. He must be a very healthy eater. This person is from Karachi. He must be having 5 pounds in a day. So all these kinds of judgments are based on the genetic or the origin. We believe that something is known for some place or some religion or any kind of affiliation is known for something, then we believe that this person, this particular case, will also be like that, and taking that as a premise. Now, this is very much applicable if you, I'm not sure if we have discussed the 12 angry men. If we have I given you the assignment to watch 12 angry men?
No, sir.
Okay, and that is very, very important. You must all watch the movie 12 Angry Men. This is your kind of assignment, a task. It doesn't have any grade, but the assignment that you will do will be greatly influenced by that. So, since you are at home, you don't have any valid argument against this that we cannot watch it. So just watch it, even if so, just so that I can remove the possible argument that you don't have that movie and you cannot find that movie in the internet. I'll upload it on Google Classroom or Google Drive and then share it on the Google Classroom. Do something like that. I did share it with the on Venus, but you don't have access to Venus on your own. So I'll try to put it on the Google Drive. So 12 Angry Men is a definite movie to watch. You will understand many arguments, how they are fallacious, how they are used. One of the arguments used, and then it was just, opened up this, so that you can understand that it was a fallacious argument is the genetic argument. So watch the movie and you will understand. Then we have the ambiguity argument, which means using words that have ambiguous meanings or dual meanings deliberately to misrepresent the truth. Now, this this is an interesting kind of argument. For example, if you deliberately try to find loopholes in some kind of instruction, some kind of claim or argument, and then you place your argument on those assumptions that are based on dual meaning. Now, let's take an example for this. For example, there was a notice on our in our corridor in the management sciences department, and it was on the wall, and it says that students are uh, students cannot stand here in the corridor when their class is uh, is in progress. Students cannot stand in the corridor when their class is in progress. Now, we can say that if the class is not in progress, then the student can stand here. Or I think it was the other way around. I think it was when their class when they are not taking the class, then they are not supposed to stand here, which means that you cannot just use the place for your special time. So you cannot stand there because your class is not in progress. So it means that if your class is in progress, then instead of taking the class, you can just stand there. But it doesn't, even though it doesn't make sense, it still does not violate the rule, the notice that says that you cannot stand here if your class is not in progress. So taking the word, interpreting the word in a way that suits your objectives is a kind of ambiguity. Or we can also say that ambiguity can also mean that making use of interpreting words with their dual meanings or assuming the intensity of the meaning. For example, if somebody says that I heard this person saying to the other person that I am going to get rid of you, and that the other person dies in a couple of days. So we say that this person was saying I'm going to get rid of you means that he was going to kill him. But it just might mean that I'm going to get rid of him, might mean that that person was the boss and he was going to fire that person, or he was a landlord and he was going to make him go out of his house, or just get rid of that person for a while, maybe I'm going to get rid of you while uh, so that I can watch a movie by myself. So it can be very, very intense, or it can be very simple. It matters how we interpret the meaning. Okay. Hatim, do you have a question?
एम्बिग्यूटी सर स्ट्रॉमैन आर्गुमेंट से सिमिलर नहीं हो जाएगा, क्योंकि इसमें भी तो आर्गुमेंट करके उसके लोफॉल ही निकाल के वीक कर देते ना आर्गुमेंट को।
कौन सा वाला?
स्ट्रॉमैन
नहीं, strawman means to attack something or somebody who is not able to fight back, while ambiguity is about the word, saying that this word means this thing. Getting rid of somebody means to kill that person. Or I can say, for example, if I'm saying, I am going to, I'm going to be, this person was, I'll give you a simpler example if you can get it. It happens in situations if we say that this person is qualified to do this. Now, this word qualified or may mean that, or we can say this: are you ready to do this? It means you are ready. Now, this ready might mean qualified. That means experience. That might mean something. And but it's not necessary that ready means qualified or experienced or authorized to do something. I might be qualified to do something, but I'm not authorized. If somebody has done an MBA, that person is qualified to teach the BBA student, but it doesn't mean that person is authorized to teach the BBA student. So ready might be interpreted as qualified, might be interpreted as authorized, might be interpreted as something else. So we can take the meanings out of that, and if we choose a meaning that is not quite intended by the person originally saying that, then we are making a fallacy. Okay, personal incredulity. Saying that because one finds something difficult to understand, therefore it's not true. For example, if I say that this is so complex, it must not be true. This is now very weird, but this is a fairly common fallacy that people commit. Now, how do they commit this fallacy? For example, if I say that actually how does a certain machine work, and I explain all the things, and the other person says that this is very too complex, it cannot be so, it must be simple. So I refute our argument because it's too complex to understand. So if I don't understand something, it doesn't mean it's not true. For example, I am explaining these logical fallacies right now, and if a student says that I don't get it, it means it's not so. Just because you don't get it doesn't mean it's not so. That's called personal incredulity. And lastly, I've just tried to have this at the last time deliberately. It's the fallacy. The fallacy is to presume that a claim is wrong because a fallacy has been committed. Now, this is very weird, and this is again the fallacy is one of the fallacies that are actually being committed in 12 Angry Men, and that you can see it. But still, there is an argument for it. If you see it, then you will understand. The fallacy means that if somebody is making an argument that is true, but also has committed a fallacy, any of the fallacy, and if we find out that fallacy and we say that because this argument has a fallacious point in it, therefore the whole argument is to be refuted. For example, if I go to a climate change conference and I say that climate change is real because we see that the icebergs are melting very fast, the climate change is occurring, there are storms and earthquakes and floods and heat waves, and the ecosystem is pretty much harmed. There are animals being extinct, and there are wildfires happening, and because there is a lot of pollution, and that pollution is the carbon emissions are impacting the climate, and all of this is saying that climate change is happening. And then among these arguments, I also say that I went to Antarctica and I saw that there was a lot of water there, and I did not find any iceberg for about a 10-minute drive. So the icebergs have melted. Now this argument is a kind of what's that? You should be able to identify it. It's a anecdotal fallacy, because I'm saying I drove to Antarctica and I did not see any iceberg, therefore the iceberg was melted. And that's a fallacy. And taking the fallacy, one of the arguments as a fallacious argument, as a weak argument, and saying because of that we say that the whole climate change argument is not true, is a big fallacy. We could not do that. So it's a kind of an ethical responsibility of the person who has identified a fallacy, that person should say that there is a fallacy in this argument, but if we remove that fallacy and let's still see if the argument has merit to be proven accurate or right or not. Okay, not clear. Which one is not clear? The fallacy is not clear. Which one is not clear? Okay. The fallacy, let's do this again. The fallacy means that there is one argument in which there are 4 premises. 3 of those premises are correct and 1 of them is wrong. Okay. So, for example, I say Muhammad Ali Jinnah University is a university that has more than 2,000 students. Muhammad Ali Jinnah University is a public university that has more than 2,000 students. It has many different faculties like business administration and computer sciences and engineering and biosciences. Muhammad Ali Jinnah University is a general category university that has scored a ranking of number 1 in the provincial accuracy, CIUC. in the general category. And Muhammadiyah University is about 22 years old. So it's not a new university, it is at least 22 years old. So, and therefore, my conclusion is that Muhammadiyah University is a fair selection for many students to be enrolled in that university. Now, if somebody says that I agree that it is number one, I agree that it is a general category, I agree that it is a university with 22 years of heritage, I agree that it has more than 2,000 students, but it is a private university, not a public university, as you said. Therefore, your argument is wrong. You have just stated something wrong, and therefore, I'm going to refute the whole of the argument. So, when there is a fallacy, there is something wrong in an argument, and you say that because that is a fallacy, I'm going to just refute the whole argument and say that the whole of it is wrong. So that's called a fallacy. Hope you get it this time. Great. So we've understood the fallacies. Anyone else has a question? Please, you can ask me. I'm going to put up a quiz in about some time today, hopefully in the next hour or so. And the time for it will be in today. As soon as I will put it up on YouTube, it will be just a few hours there. After that, you will just get a few hours to attempt that quiz. So be sure to just around the evening, just be sure to check up Google Classroom for that quiz. It will be related to logical fallacies. So watch the previous video and watch this video to understand and then attempt that quiz. Okay, and probably there will be an assignment as well on this, or maybe some other, maybe on paradoxical dilemma. I'll just put that assignment. You've done one assignment on definition, then you'll do this. If you have any questions, you can ask. I know you guys have a class. Yeah, I'll give you time enough till about 12 in the midnight. So you have plenty of time. The quiz is not going to be that long. It's probably going to take 5 minutes or so. How many assignments? We will have at least 6 assignments. So just gear up for more. Anybody else who wants to ask any question related to our lecture? Yep. Anything you would like to ask? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording and we can, if you have anything else to talk about, then we can talk about that. But we'll keep the video still here so that we can share that on YouTube. Okay, so that's it for this lecture. See you next Tuesday.